I've worked on cars for most of my life, long enough to know that engines rarely lie. They rattle when something's loose. They whine when something's worn down. They go quiet when something finally gives up. People, on the other hand, are much better at hiding. That's why I knew this 1967 Impala wasn't really here for a tune-up. It rolled into my garage slow, not broken, not struggling, just careful. Like the man driving it, didn't he want to wake up anything that had been sleeping inside that car for a very long time? He shut the engine off and didn't get out right away. I watched him through the office window, hands resting on the steering wheel, eyes fixed forward, but not seeing the wall in front of him. That pause told me more than words ever could. When he finally stepped out, he nodded, cleared his throat, and said, "I just want it checked over." That's what people always say when they don't know how to explain the real reason. The Impala looked tired, but honest. Faded paint, chrome dulled by time, not neglect. The kind of car that had Antebana abused, just lived with. And when I opened the hood, I heard it immediately. The engine ran, but it carried a sound you only hear when a car has been waiting longer than it should. Waiting does that to machines, to people. He stayed close while I worked, too close. Every time I paused to listen, he tensed. Every adjustment made him watch my hands like they were holding something fragile. Finally, he said it. "I don't even know why I still have this car." I didn't answer, because that sentence wasn't about ownership. It was about memory. The Impala had belonged to his older brother. Back when they were younger, that car wasn't transportation. It was freedom. It was late nights with nowhere to be, windows down, music loud enough to drown out everything else. They learned that car together, not from manuals, from mistakes, burned knuckles, wrong turns, long talks that only happen when the road is quiet and the future still feels open. They weren't just brothers, they were witnesses to each other's lives. The fight that ended it all wasn't loud. No shouting, no slammed doors, just words said with too much certainty and not enough care. Words meant to defend pride that ended up wounding trust. That night, his brother got into the Impala and drove away. Not fast, not reckless, just far enough to turn silence into distance. Days became months. Months became years. Life filled the space where questions used to live. Jobs, schedules, responsibilities that keep your hands busy so your mind doesn't wander too far back. But distance doesn't erase things. It just stretches them. One afternoon, long after expectation had worn itself out, the Impala came back, parked in front of his house. Engine still warm, keys sitting on the driver's seat like they'd been placed there carefully. No note, no explanation, just a car-like assent without punctuation. He didn't drive it. Didn't sell it either. He parked it in the garage and shut the door. Because selling it would have meant accepting finality, and driving it would have meant reopening something he had spent years learning how to avoid. So the Impala stayed there, dust settling, time passing. Waiting. When he finally brought it to me, he said he wanted it reliable again, just in case. He added, "People say that when they don't know what they're preparing for." As I worked, I noticed something about the car. It wasn't neglected. Fluids had been topped off, parts replaced slowly, carefully. Someone had been taking care of it without ever really using it. That's not how you treat a car. That's how you treat a memory while working behind the dash. My fingers brushed against something loose. An old photograph slid free. Two young men leaning against the Impala. Same stance, same smile. That photo had lived there for years. Hidden, protected. He stared at it like it might say something new this time. Then he said quietly, I should've gone after him. Not angry, not dramatic, just honest. When the Impala was finished, the engine didn't roar. It settled into a steady rhythm. Balanced, calm. The kind of sound that tells you something's finally aligned. But the man didn't look relieved. He looked exposed. Because once the car was fixed, there was nothing left between him and the past. That night he drove. Not fast, not far. Just long enough to remember how that seat felt, how that steering wheel always sat a little crooked, how the engine sounded best when it wasn't rushed. At a red light, his phone rang. Unknown number. He stared at it, let it ring, then answered. There was silence, then breathing, then a voice he hadn't heard in years, older, rougher. Does the Impala still hesitate a little when it's cold? That's how it started. Not with apologies, not with explanations, with something they both understood. They talked that night about the car, about work, about nothing important and everything that mattered. Some conversations don't fix the past. They just reopen the door. A week later, they met in a parking lot. Neutral ground, two men standing across from a car that had carried both of them. Even when they weren't together, they didn't hug right away, didn't argue. They just stood there, learning how to exist in the same space again. When he came back to my garage later, he looked lighter. The Impala still wasn't perfect. Neither were they, but the car didn't feel like an anchor anymore. It felt like a bridge. After all these years, I've learned something in this garage. Cars don't just break down. They wait. They hold moments people aren't ready to face yet. And sometimes an engine comes back to life, not to move forward, but to bring someone back to where things went quiet. If you believe every car carries more than steel and rubber, if you believe distance doesn't always mean the end, then you belong here. Subscribe to the channel, because every car has a story, and some of them are patient enough to wait for the right moment to be told.